What's good everyone, it's Yadiiiigg here reporting for No Jumper, and today we're here to talk about Suicideboys. And a couple weeks ago now, the underground community was hit with the abrupt news of 3 6 Mafia, or two people of 3 6 Mafia, DJ Paul and Juicy J, who I'm just going to refer to as 3 6 Mafia throughout this video, suing Suicideboys. Quote, 3 6 Mafia's Juicy J and DJ Paul hit Suicideboys with 6.45 million copyright infringement lawsuit, read the title, and outrage read the response from fans. And in this video, we wanted to break down the specifics of exactly what was alleged, but before we do, let's add some background and some context to the overlap in Suicideboys and 3 6 Mafia narratives. And ever since Suicideboys first came out as a group together back around 2014 or so, their sound has constantly been compared to 3 6 Mafia's.
Take a trip down memory lane. I claim insane and blame the game for making me drain a stain.
It was dark, it was hard hitting, it was menacing, it was slightly depressing, and it was so obviously influenced by 3 6's groundbreaking sound that they came out with in the 90s. Plus, on top of this, Suicideboys sampled their music heavily in their works. And have been doing so since the very start, but we'll touch on that in a second. However, it's not like Suicideboys ever hid from these 3 6 comparisons or their influence on their work. Time and time again, they've sung their praises.
Me and him were raised on Cash Money from our moms being from like
3 6 Mafia heavy.
3 6 Mafia.
Plus, in this interview Scrim did with XXL, he was quoted as saying, "I was always into rap. I got introduced to 3 6 Mafia when I was 8, when I was riding around with my uncle," going on to say after that when he first heard them, he was obsessed. But moving forward from the early years and the formation of the group, after years of grinding and making a name for themselves, all of that context right there and kind of the background and the history between the two, it's not hard to see why fans were bewildered by the news, considering the fact that Juicy J had been so open in working with them and embracing the boys just a couple years ago, which inarguably helped Juicy J at that time because Suicideboys were prolific underground names by then. However, as we know, Juicy J is only one member of 3 6, DJ Paul is another, and this DJ Vlad interview DJ Paul did with Seed of 6 back in January of 2019 foreshadowed everything we're seeing go on right now. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Seed of 6, it's a group comprised of 2 people who are DJ Paul's nephews and are the sons of Lord Infamous, a member of 3 6 Mafia who is now sadly passed away, and this group right here makes similar music to SB. In fact, just like how Suicideboys sampled 3 6 so heavily, Seed of 6 actually had a tape where they went over a bunch of Suicideboys samples, something that, as you can see on the screen right here with this tweet, Scrim was not exactly thrilled about and seemed to have a bit of an issue with DJ Paul about at that time, and this is what DJ Paul had to say about this whole situation right here.
They made a mixtape called Suicide 6.
Yeah. Okay.
With Suicideboys samples in it.
And I guess there was an issue?
Yeah, they got upset about it, which I didn't understand because they have never probably put out a song without sampling me. And I like them dudes, man. I'm a fan of their music. And I'm a fan of them. But I didn't understand why they got upset when Seed of 6 brought out a mixtape with their samples in it, a free mixtape now. But then, at the same time, one of their own inside guys sent me a list of maybe 40 songs that they sampled me on, with 40 million views here, 50 there. I did get a phone call from somebody saying, "Hey, we're gonna reach out to you and we're gonna clear some samples to y'all. Is that cool?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course, I love Suicideboys, let's do it." I never got that call back, but the album came out with them samples in it.
Well, that's what lawyers are for.
That's what lawyers are for. So I'm just chilling. I mean, I like them dudes. I ain't chilling. I ain't in no hurry. I know the money's always there. You know,
And as is pretty evident by that video right there, this lawsuit has clearly been in motion, or at least the thought of DJ Paul's, for quite some time now. So let's actually break this down. So essentially, the overarching claim centers around Suicideboys sampling various 3 6 Mafia songs without any permission to do so, consequently meaning that 3 6 Mafia are saying they didn't get paid for and they didn't allow Suicideboys to sample them in any way, shape or form. Specific songs of theirs reference including Where's the Bud, Now I'm High, Really High, and Sippin' Some Syrup, the latter of which was sampled in Suicideboys' Purple Ranger from 2014. In totality, totality, 3 6 Mafia alleges Suicideboys stole 35 of their songs and worked them into various recordings across multiple projects, suggesting that they profited off 3 6's sound via the millions of streams that they got across YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, etc., which they have received royalties for. Now, some fans in response to this have come out and said, hey, aren't these songs just on SoundCloud or YouTube or something, so it doesn't really matter since they're not actually published recordings and they're just mixtape songs. And whilst this is true for some of them, others are professionally released recordings, and this is something DJ Paul also touched on in his DJ Vlad interview.
And then on top of that, they bring out a Capitol Records album that's a straight remake of one of my songs off one of my last albums, with me in it. Start off with me in it. Capitol Records, now that came out like a couple of months ago.
And one such example of this is called Coma, which samples Player Fly's Creeping Out the Cut, which was produced by DJ Paul. And this song Coma from Suicideboys lands on their album I Want to Die in New Orleans that was released through Grey 59, their own label, as well as through Caroline, which is a subsidiary of Capitol Records, which is a subsidiary of UMG. So in saying this, it is a professionally released record and it's available on DSPs and it is available to purchase as well. So yeah, that kind of age-old argument of you can do whatever you want on a mixtape or whatever because it's not actually available for purchase or what have you doesn't really apply here. And Suicideboys in response to this have denied any sort of illegal sampling, stealing or infringement of copyright. And funnily enough, in rebutting this argument, Suicideboys has actually said that 3 6 Mafia are guilty of the very same thing they're alleging of Suicideboys. As you can read right here, according to Suicideboys, 3 6 Mafia are not the legal owners of Mask and the Glock, which Suicideboys samples in their song of the same name. And furthermore, they say that 3 6 Mafia did not clear the samples of Diana Ross's Sparkle and Carlito Way's track I'm Loaded, which were used in the song Mask and a Glock, which as I said is the same thing that 3 6 Mafia are essentially alleging that Suicideboys did with their music. Plus, on top of this, Suicideboys also allege that DJ Paul and Juicy J do not own the copyright of the vocal work of people like Lord Infamous, Gangsta Black, etc., who Suicideboys have sampled and whose songs have been named in the lawsuit. As such, according to Suicideboys at least, they cannot sue on their behalf for their voices they've used in their songs. And although on the surface level this does make sense, it's worth noting however that these rebuttals and allegations of Suicideboys won't apply to every song and every sample that's outlined in the suit. However, from my perspective at least, this seems to be a legal tactic from Suicideboys lawyers to try to scare 3 6 Mafia from furthering on with the suit, as possibly it may open 3 6 Mafia up to a suit of their own regarding uncleared samples if the Suicideboys allegations are correct. However, the plot thickens when Suicideboys begin to touch on the work they did with Juicy J, as I mentioned earlier on these two mixtapes, the vast majority of which were produced by Suicideboys. According to Suicideboys, Juicy J verbally approved the clearances of any 3 6 Mafia samples for use by Suicideboys in exchange for their production services, unpublished beats, and creative contributions to the two aforementioned Juicy J mixtapes. On top of this, in addition, they also allege Juicy J never paid them any fees, royalties, or other compensation for their production services, unpublished beats, and creative contributions to both those mixtapes. And they claim that Juicy never presented and Suicideboys never signed any documentation transferring the rights of Suicideboys for their work on these projects. So essentially, Suicideboys are alleging that they had a verbal agreement with Juicy J that let them do whatever they wanted in regards to sampling 3 6 Mafia in exchange for their work on these projects being done free of charge, which if true and somehow proven in a court of law would go a long way in helping the Suicideboys case with this right here. However, DJ Paul responded directly to these claims in this interview with XXL that happened after the news of the suit surfaced. He says that the Suicideboys didn't have a verbal agreement with Juicy J and that they were using their music even before they met him, and goes on to call them liars. He also goes on to say that he seriously doubts Juicy J gave them a verbal agreement because he can't speak on his behalf and the copyright to his music. Expanding on the personal gravity to the situation, he also references the past member of 3 6 Mafia, Lord Infamous, suggesting that he finds it a little bit disrespectful that Scrim has gone by the name The Scarecrow in the past, which Lord Infamous also did. Plus, on top of this, he goes on to reinstate the point about them originally saying that they were going to compensate him, but according to him, the Suicideboys never reached back out about the compensation and about the clearances. And as you can see right there, the lawsuit is so multi-layered and there's all these moving parts in regards to what the Suicideboys said, what Juicy J said, what DJ Paul said, etc, etc. But I guess we'll see how it plays out over time. For me personally, I'm on the side of the Suicideboys in this case, because for Juicy J to go from working with them just a couple years back, embracing the boys, to all of a sudden now suing them for millions of dollars, I don't know, that just doesn't sit right with me personally. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Whose side are you on? Who do you agree with? Let us know in the comments. Also, if you guys don't know myself, Yadiiiigg, I do have my own YouTube channel where I make very similar content to this. If you guys like this video and you want to check out my stuff, link will be in the description. That would be much appreciated. Also, as always, a big thank you to Adam and the whole No Jumper team for letting me back on the channel. I'm always thankful to be able to share my content on this platform. If you guys haven't watched the other No Jumper videos on the screen, you can see right here. Make sure to. But that's all for me today, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Peace.